everyone, I'm Hoidal, and today I'm going to share with you a little bit about the Black Death and specifically Boccaccio's Decameron. First, I will give a little background on the Black Plague and its effects that it had on the people. Second, I will share with you a little bit why I chose this topic for my project. And third, I will show you a little short film that I made of my friends acting out a little scene from Boccaccio's Decameron. To give some background, the plague struck Europe in about 1347, and it destroyed at least 50% of the population in less than a century. The disease was carried to Europe by rats, and when people got this disease, they would get boils all over their bodies, and then eventually get a fever, and they would pass away in the next 2 to 3 days. Most of the time, people didn't even know what was happening outside of their towns, let alone their own homes, due to the lack of communication because everyone was trying to stay inside due to this pandemic that was going around. During this same time, Boccaccio's Decameron was written around the years of 1351. I chose to do my project on this work because when we discussed it in the first chapter of our class, I really was interested in it since it's so relatable to what we're going through today. We also have a pandemic, which is a disease that's killing a lot of people in our country. So I saw those two things as parallels, and I know that most of you did because I remember from that Padlet that most people wrote about the pandemic being very close to the Black Death from 1347. After reading through some of the poems from Boccaccio's Decameron, the way that he chose to word most of the passages and the inclusion of a lot of similes and metaphors made my love for this work grow even stronger since it was more relatable and interesting to me. Some lines from Boccaccio's Decameron that stood out to me particularly are, "And the plague gathered strength as it was transmitted from the sick to the healthy through normal intercourse. Just as fire catches onto any dry or greasy object placed too close to it. Nor did it stop there. Not only did the healthy incur the disease, and with it, the prevailing morality by talking to or keeping company with the sick. They had only to touch the clothing or anything else that had come into contact with or been used by the sick, and the plague evidently was passed to the one who had handled those things." The thing that stood out to me most about this passage was the reality of the comparison that Boccaccio made between the plague spreading and a fire that's just spreading and it's catching on anything that has grease on it. I think that's definitely a very visual tool for me. For the last part of my project, I will show you a video that I created on the 10 friends who escape from the city of Florence and go quarantine in a villa, and during this time they tell stories to entertain themselves since there's nothing better to do. In Boccaccio's Decameron, there's a new story and theme every day. Day 1 consists of witty discussions on human vices. On day 2, fortune triumphs over its human playthings, but is defeated by human will on day 3. And day 4 is marked by tragic love stories, and so on and so on. Each day brings a new challenge and a new adventure. So I hope you enjoy it. Here it is. Thank you all so much for listening to my presentation on the Black Death and more specifically Boccaccio's Decameron.